category that I'm a little embarrassed about how much I spend, and part of it is just pure, I guess, negligence on my... I know this video is a bit of a departure from what I usually post on this channel, but since I've recently started on my journey to saving up for a home in one of the most expensive cities in the whole world, I decided to document this process. So hope you come along this journey with me. Hope you enjoy the start of my Money Diaries series. I always find these videos super interesting because I'm a nosy person, and I also like to calibrate my spending to make sure that I'm somewhat in line with people of a similar age and living in a similar location. Not that it really matters, because at the end of the day, how we spend our money is completely up to us, and it's a bit of a values thing. You know, you spend your money on what you value at the time, and the purpose of this video is not to say that this is how much you should spend. It is simply how much I spend, and if you're curious, then keep watching. So, for some context, I recently moved out of my parents' home and I now live in Melbourne, which is, I would say, the second most expensive city in Australia, although it might have recently been eclipsed by Brisbane, which is shocking. But for the past few weeks or so, I have actually been visiting my parents back home, and also I had a big work trip in Sydney, so a lot of the items that I spent were based on Sydney pricing, which is a bit more than Melbourne, so keep that in mind. Without further ado, I will just jump straight into the numbers. Okay, let's start with my favorite category, and the category that I usually spend the most money on every month, and that's food. So in October, I spent a total of, and I'm doing this live so you'll see my reaction, I spent a total of $197 on food. Let's see what my most expensive items were. I had I think it was either a dinner or a lunch at a Japanese restaurant, and that cost me $42. I think I may have paid for my parents. I can't exactly remember what the occasion was, but this is the most expensive meal I had. When I eat out in Sydney, I tend to keep my meals around the $30 per person mark. So there's very few instances where I would go fine dining unless it's like a company meal, but I'm not counting any of my company expenses in here. The second most expensive was Dopa. So if you guys aren't from Australia, Dopa is like Japanese fast food chain. It's not really fast food because it's not super fast food pricing, but it is on the cheaper end, and I spent $26.39 there. And then the third most expensive food item is KFC order, and this is kind of embarrassing. I think I also paid my sister. It was $20.70. That is what I spent on food. I'm just looking through the list to see if I can find any kind of reoccurring expenses that are interesting. I can see that I ate at this Thai fast food place twice. Sorry, it was a Malaysian place twice, and I got a laksa for $17.90, and I also had yoga berry twice at around $7 each time. That's interesting. I guess I didn't really spend too much eating out with my own money, because I guess I had the work budget when I was traveling for work, but usually I would say this amount is in line with how I spend each month on food. I tend to eat at home where possible, but of course, because I was traveling a lot for work, I didn't actually need to pay for groceries this month. Usually I would spend around $100 per week on groceries, so that was a huge saving. All right, now let's move on to transportation. I spent a total of $136.71. So I'm not too sure what's causing this. Let's sort by highest to lowest. Okay, so I did actually take 3 Uber rides. So in total, I spent $72 on Ubers this month, which is more than I would usually ever spend on Ubers. But this month, I think I had a few personal events, like a Olivia Rodrigo concert where I ended up Ubering to and from. So I think that was justified. And then on public transport, because Sydney public transport is so expensive, I spent $65.13. Yeah, that's a lot on public transport, because each round trip to the city is $9. I don't know if other cities are like this. Yeah, do let me know if this sounds crazy for where you live. All right, let's move on to the next big category, which is rent and utilities. So because I was out of town for the majority of this month, my utilities bill may be a bit lower than before. I haven't yet paid it, so it hasn't showed up in my October accounts, but I'll give an estimate based on what I spent in previous months. On rent this month, I spent $1,651, which is around $413 per week. It's on the expensive side for Melbourne. And then on utilities, I'm estimating that I'll spend around $280 this month. So in total on rent and utilities, I'll be spending $1,931. So yeah, almost $2,000 a month on rent and utilities. I guess we are in a cost of living crisis, so I can't complain too much about this because everyone is going through this, but it is just so painful every month looking through my rent and utilities. Now let's touch on the fun part of my spending for the month, which is entertainment and media. In total, I spent $410.28 on entertainment this month. And the biggest driver of this spend was in a concert. It was my 2 tickets for the Olivia Rodrigo concert, and I completely overpaid my tickets because I was in the nosebleeds and I could not see Olivia or the screen behind her at all because there was like this giant stage structure in the way. But nonetheless, I still had a great time. There were a lot of little girls around me screaming, and I felt like I was probably on the older end of the demographic. But it was such a great night. So I don't regret spending this amount, and it also happened to be the day after my birthday, so I saw it as a little bit of a birthday treat for myself. Apart from that, in entertainment, I also have the usual $14 a month on Spotify, and that actually reminds me I should either cancel Spotify or my other subscription, which I'll get to later, but it's kind of duplicative with Spotify because they both have a music service as part of the offering, so I might cancel one or the other next month. What else is interesting entertainment? Oh yes, I did buy a book this month called Happy City because I've been really getting into urban design. So yeah, I haven't read it yet, but I will hopefully get around to it soon so that I can make it worth the money I spent. And I spent $26 on that book. Books are getting expensive these days. That is all I spent this month on entertainment and media. Alrighty, now let's go to shopping. So this month on shopping, I spent a total of $109.16. The most expensive item was on a microphone stand for my microphone, which I was meaning to return, but just never got around to because of work travel. So that's on me. It was $33. So that's a bit of a yikes. And then I also spent $14 on a microphone USB cord on Amazon, which was not needed because my boyfriend ended up bringing me one. So that was annoying. I basically wasted like $45 on Amazon this month, and I was too lazy to return it. So that's a bit of a fail. Alrighty, what else did I spend on shopping? I spent $24 at Priceline. I don't exactly remember what I spent it on, which is bad. I think it may have been mascara and a cleanser because I was traveling for work and I just forgot to bring those 2 items, or I might have left it at a hotel I stayed in. So that's why I got those. Okay, now next category, a bit more boring, is healthcare and medical. I did have a couple of doctor's appointments this month, but I don't think they billed me for this month. They might bill me for the following month, so I need to check on that. I spent $118.99 on healthcare medical this month, and that was spent on my contact lenses mostly, which were $118. Contacts are so expensive, but I just can't go back to my glasses after wearing contacts for so long. I think this is one of those expenses that I have to painfully just cop, I guess. Alright, let's now look at beauty treatments. I spent $25 on beauty treatments, and that's on my monthly eyebrow wax, which that reminds me I do need to book one in for this month too. Now onto health and fitness. I don't actually have a gym membership because I travel so much for work, so I just use ClassPass, and that's $74 a month. Now onto the category that I'm a little embarrassed about how much I spent, and part of it is just pure, I guess, negligence on my part because At one point I had a bunch of subscriptions charged onto one of my cards, and I just didn't link that card to my overall spend tracking system, so I was not keeping track of what items were being spent from that card. And this month when I linked everything, I discovered that I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was paying for, which is so painful because it's just unnecessary money lost. I am going to be on top of it this month, and I'm going to cancel a bunch of things, but let's dig in and see what I spent on software subscriptions this month. So the first thing, which is for me has now become an essential because I do use it for work purposes and just for kind of, I guess, everyday random questions I have, and that's the ChatGPT Pro subscription, which I spent $34 on this month. And then the next subscription, which is, I guess, not really software, it's an Amazon Prime subscription. I actually discovered this month that I don't use Amazon that much now. I think I only made 2 Prime purchases over the last 4 months, so I don't think it's worth it for me. I'm going to cancel it this month and get the $10 back. I also spent a ton on Apple related subscriptions, which include $23 on a YouTube Prime, is it YouTube Prime? YouTube Pro subscription, which is so expensive. The reason I was paying for it was because a few months ago I had a really long international flight and I was bored, so I wanted to download some YouTube videos. I just never ended up cancelling that subscription. Part of me was thinking I do save a lot of time from not watching ads, but I don't think that's a good enough excuse, so I'm going to cancel YouTube Pro this month. I have a bunch of cloud subscriptions, and that was where I was double dipping in the expenses. I have like 3 different Google subscriptions for Google storage because I have 3 email accounts that are all going over storage, but I think I'll just consolidate everything this month, so I'll only be paying 1 set of subscriptions for Google. What else? I also pay for a CapCut subscription, which is $13 a month. I'm debating whether I should cancel it or not because I haven't made many new videos, but I will always need CapCut when I do make videos, so I think I'll keep that subscription for now. Yeah, I think that covers all of my software subscriptions. I'm definitely going to try and do a better job next month of consolidating all my accounts and removing duplicate subscriptions, because I think it's just like a stupid thing to pay money for. Hopefully that covers all my expenses for this month. Let me add everything up, and the total amount I spent for this month is $3,104.15. That includes my rent and utilities, which is the main chunk of expenses. So if I calculate the proportion of my expenses that are on rent and utilities, it actually comes around 60%. Okay, so my income for the month is primarily from work, and I do have some investment interest. That takes me to a total of $5,313. The proportion I have remaining each month is around $2,208, which I save and invest 100% of that. So that's around 42% of my income that I'm able to save. I think that's a pretty decent amount. It varies every month depending on my expenses, and I think this month I definitely underspent relative to previous months on food just because I had the work trips. Hopefully that provides you a bit of insight as to what I spend in a month in living in Australia. I do live in one of the most expensive cities in the world, so please calibrate for that. Hopefully this video was somewhat entertaining and insightful, and if you'd like to see more videos on personal finance and travel, please do subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.